She sat on the bathroom floor. The pregnancy test shook in her hand. 2 lines. She whispered, "Tayo, we're having a baby." He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just looked at her and said, "You know what to do. Get rid of it." And then, 3 days later, a pink envelope arrived, tied in a golden ribbon. The card read, "It's a girl. Join us to celebrate Tayo and Imani's baby shower." Lumi sat on the edge of the bed, holding the test in her shaking hands. 2 pink lines stared back at her. She blinked just to be sure. Yes, she was pregnant. A soft smile crept across her face. After everything, the heartbreak, the pain, the 2 babies she had lost, this felt like a sign, a miracle. She had already started dreaming of the tiny things, little socks, bedtime stories, gentle kisses on a newborn's forehead. She imagined Tayo holding their baby, both of them smiling like a family. So, with all the hope in her heart, she told him, "Tayo, I'm pregnant." But instead of joy, his face turned stiff, cold. No smile, no excitement, just silence. Then he said it in a low, firm voice, "We're not ready. I can't have a baby right now." Her smile faded. Her heart dropped. His words felt like a slap. "We?" She looked at him closely. What did he mean, we? She had waited, prayed, hoped, and now, when it finally happened, he didn't want it. He avoided her eyes, picked up his phone, and acted like nothing had happened. Lumi sat there in silence, confused and crushed. It didn't make sense. Weren't they both trying? Didn't he hold her during the last miscarriage and say, "Next time, it will work"? So why now? Why this coldness? It was in that moment, as he walked away without another word, that something inside Lumi whispered the truth. Maybe he wasn't talking about them anymore. Maybe there was another we, someone else he had already planned a life with. Lumi didn't cry. Not yet. She just held her belly gently, as if to say to her baby, "I'm still here. Even if he's not, I'm still here." Lumi came home that evening feeling heavy. She had spent the day trying to stay strong, trying to hold herself together after Tayo's cold reaction. Her body was tired, her heart even more so. As she approached the front door, something caught her eye. A soft pink envelope lying neatly on the welcome mat. No stamp, no return address, just her name written in pretty, curled handwriting. Lumi paused. For a second, she thought maybe it was an apology card from Tayo. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he finally understood. She picked it up slowly, carefully, like it might break in her hands. When she opened it, a small burst of shiny confetti slipped out and danced across the floor. Her eyes moved down to the card. A thick, glossy design with colourful balloons, baby bottles, and rattles. But the words hit her like a truck. "Baby shower for Imani and Tayo. It's a girl!" She froze. The room seemed to spin. Her breath caught in her chest. Her eyes kept reading the same line over and over, trying to make sense of it. Imani, Tayo, a girl. Her fingers trembled as she held the card tighter, her mind racing. This wasn't a mistake. This was real. Her husband, the same man who told her they weren't ready for a baby, was having a baby shower with another woman. And not just that. It was a celebration. It was joyful. It was public. All the things he refused to give her. Lumi sat on the couch, still holding the card like it was something fragile. But it wasn't fragile. It was cruel. The truth stared her in the face. Her baby wasn't the problem. She was. He didn't want her. He had already chosen someone else. She wasn't part of his future. She was the secret he wanted to erase. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't sob. It wasn't the kind of sadness that screamed. It was the kind that sat quietly and hurt deeply. The kind that made your chest feel empty. She looked down at her belly and gently touched it. "You are not a mistake," she whispered. "You are my reason." And in that moment, she made a quiet promise to herself and to her unborn child. If no one would celebrate them, she would. If no one clapped for her, she'd clap for herself. She was done begging to be loved. The card that was supposed to break her had just lit a fire inside her. Lumi didn't wait for Tayo to come home that night. She didn't sit around, hoping for an explanation or an apology. She already knew the truth. The baby shower card was all the proof she needed. She didn't ask him why. She didn't shout. She didn't cry loud or break things. Instead, she moved in silence. She walked into the bedroom, pulled out a small suitcase from under the bed, and started packing slowly. A few clothes, her sketchbook, her paints, and the tiny baby socks she had secretly bought last week when she still believed everything would be okay. She folded each item with care, not because she wasn't hurting, but because she refused to let her pain make her look small. She paused for a moment and looked around the room. This space once held dreams. Now it felt cold, fake, like she had been living inside someone else's story, a story where she was never meant to win. Lumi zipped the bag and walked out without looking back. The night air felt different, like it was wrapping around her, reminding her that she was still alive, still breathing, still capable of moving forward, even when everything had fallen apart. She walked straight to Esh's place, her childhood friend who had always been there, even in the background. Eshi opened the door and didn't ask any questions. She saw Lumi's eyes and understood everything. She simply stepped aside, letting Lumi in like a sister would. That was all Lumi needed at that moment, a safe place to breathe, to think, and to begin again. Inside the small flat, Lumi sat quietly on the edge of the couch. She didn't say much, but her mind was loud, thoughts racing, memories flashing, pain rising. But even in all of that, she wasn't bitter. She wasn't angry. She was tired, yes, but she was also waking up, not from sleep, but from a lie. She looked down at her belly and whispered, "We're going to be okay." Because before she was anyone's wife, she was her own woman. And before heartbreak tried to break her, there was a fire in her that refused to go out. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want to destroy him. That wasn't her power. Her power was in surviving. Her strength was in rising. She knew now. She didn't need to scream to be heard. She just needed to stand, and she was already on her feet. Lumi sat in the quiet room at Aisha's flat, holding her belly with both hands. The silence helped her think clearly for the first time in days. Tayo's words still echoed in her mind. Get rid of it. That was what he wanted. Not a conversation, not care. Just an order to erase what he no longer wanted to deal with. But Lumi couldn't do it. She couldn't let go of the tiny life growing inside her. This baby didn't bring shame. This baby brought hope. So while Tayo chose lies, hiding behind smiles and another woman's baby shower, Lumi chose life. Pure, unshaken, and brave life. She found a small clinic through an online post. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, the kind of place that welcomed women with nowhere else to go. The nurse didn't judge her, didn't ask too many questions. She just smiled and said, "You're safe here." Lumi signed up for prenatal care. They gave her vitamins, did a scan, and for the first time, she heard her baby's heartbeat, fast, strong, and steady. It was the sound that broke her all over again, but this time, in the best way. She wasn't alone. Her baby was alive. Her baby was choosing her, even when no one else did. Back at Escher's, Lumi began journaling. She bought a simple notebook from a roadside stall and wrote on the first page, "Dear Dami." That's what she named the baby, even before knowing if it was a boy or girl. Dami, meaning God is with me. Every night, she wrote letters, sometimes long, sometimes short, sometimes filled with tears, but always with love. She wrote, "Even if it's just you and me, we are enough. I may not have answers, or a plan, or even a place of our own right now, but I have you, and I will protect you." And then she started painting again. She hadn't touched her brushes in weeks, but now she couldn't stop. She painted with her emotions, pain, joy, fear, strength, all poured onto blank canvases. Some days she painted a mother holding a child in the rain. Other days, a woman rising from a cracked floor, light pouring out of her. Each stroke was a release. Each colour was a step forward. Her art began to change. It wasn't just sad anymore. It was powerful. It spoke louder than any words could. Lumi didn't need Tayo's support anymore. She had found her own strength, in that tiny heartbeat, in her own two hands, in every letter she wrote, and every colour she placed on canvas. Lumi was choosing to live, not just survive, but truly, fully live. One evening, Lumi sat quietly by the window, her sketchpad resting on her lap. With soft music in the background, and her belly gently rising with each breath, she drew. Her fingers moved like they had a story to tell, a story words couldn't express. And when she finished, she looked down at what she had created. It was a painting of a woman holding a baby. The woman's skin had cracks, like a broken vase, but from those cracks, light poured out. Her eyes were full of pain, but also strength. And in her arms, the baby looked peaceful, safe. Lumi stared at the piece for a long time. Something about it felt honest. It was her. It was her journey, her truth. She took a photo of it and posted it online with no long caption and just a simple line, "Healing through art." She didn't expect much, but within hours the post started gaining likes, then comments, then shares. Women from everywhere began writing things like, "This is me," or "I feel seen." Some even sent private messages, sharing their own heartbreaks, losses, and moments of silence. A few days later, Lumi received an email from a small but well-known art gallery. The woman who ran it said Lumi's work had touched her heart deeply. She asked if Lumi had more pieces, if she would consider doing a full exhibit. Lumi's hands shook as she read the message. She hadn't planned on this. She was just painting to survive, to breathe. But now, her pain was opening doors. She spent the next weeks painting non-stop. Each canvas told a piece of her story, from the shock of the pink envelope, to walking away in silence, to writing letters to her unborn baby. She didn't hide her emotions. She didn't try to make them beautiful. She made them real. When the gallery asked her what she wanted to call the exhibit, she didn't even need to think. She said, "Uninvited, but born." It was more than just a title. It was a message. Her baby wasn't planned by him, but deeply wanted by her. Her journey wasn't welcomed by others, but it mattered. Her voice wasn't always heard, but it was loud now. Through every painting, through every frame, people came. They stood in silence. Some cried, some whispered, and even the gallery owner admitted, "I've never seen anything like this." Lumi stood quietly in the corner, hand resting on her belly, watching strangers connect with the truth she had once hidden. Tayo's world was built on lies and cover-ups, but Lumi, her truth, was now hanging on walls, and it was beautiful. The baby shower was filled with music, balloons, and people smiling for photos. Everyone looked happy, especially Imani. She wore a soft pink dress, her baby bump showing proudly. She laughed, hugged friends, and took pictures with a mom-to-be sash across her chest. In her eyes, this was a celebration of love, a new chapter, a blessing. She had no idea she was living someone else's stolen story. In the very back of the crowd stood Eshi. She wore dark sunglasses and didn't say a word. No one noticed her. That's how she wanted it. She had come only for Lumi, not to start drama, but to see the truth for herself. And now that she saw it, her heart broke a little more. Tayo was smiling. His hand rested gently on Imani's belly, just like Lumi once dreamed he would do for her. But Aisha also saw something else. She saw how Imani looked at Tayo, full of trust, full of dreams. Imani didn't know she was part of a lie. She didn't know the man beside her had told another woman, just weeks ago, to end the very life they were now celebrating. Then, a delivery man walked in, holding a large wrapped box. Everyone turned to see. "Special gift for the couple," he said. The room got quiet as the box was placed in front of Tayo and Imani. Imani smiled and began to unwrap it, thinking it was from a distant friend, or maybe a family member who couldn't attend. But the moment the paper was pulled away, the room fell silent. Inside the box was a framed painting. It showed a woman walking away, her back strong and steady. She carried a child on her hip, and behind her, the sky was bright, as if she was walking toward a better place. The colours were powerful, deep, and full of meaning. At the bottom of the frame was a note, carefully taped. Ishi watched as Imani reached for it and read out loud, "Thank you both for setting me free." Tayo's smile disappeared. His face turned pale. He knew exactly who had sent it. The guests whispered, confused. Imani looked from the painting to Tayo, unsure of what was happening. For the first time that day, doubt entered her eyes. Eshi quietly turned and walked away. Her job done. She didn't need to say anything. Lumi's message had already spoken. It wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, but it was clear. Lumi wasn't broken. She was free. And the very people who thought they had replaced her, they were the reason she found her strength again. Months passed, and Lumi's life slowly started to change. She kept painting, pouring her story into colours and shapes. But now, the world had started paying attention. Her art wasn't just something hidden in a small gallery anymore. It began to spread, to speak louder, to touch people far beyond her small circle. One of her paintings, the one of the cracked woman holding a baby, was chosen by a mental health organisation. They used it for a national campaign about healing through pain. Her name was printed on the posters. Her message was printed too. Even if you're broken, you still shine. That line stayed with people. It gave them hope. Another painting, one of a woman holding an umbrella while fire rained from the sky, was auctioned at a big charity event. The money helped open a new shelter for single mothers. Lumi didn't attend the event, but her presence was everywhere. Her art was the reason broken women would now have a safe place to sleep. She had turned her pain into protection for others. Soon, her work appeared on walls across the city, tall buildings, bus stops, even billboards. People walking through the streets stopped to look. They stared at her bold lines, her deep colours, the raw emotion in every stroke, and then they read her name, Lumi. It didn't take long for people who knew Tayo to start noticing. "Wait, isn't that Tayo's ex-wife?" one friend asked. "Didn't he tell her to get rid of the baby?" another whispered. The whispers started small, but they grew louder. Tayo couldn't run from it. He couldn't explain it away. The same woman he pushed aside, the one he thought would disappear quietly, had become a voice the whole city was now listening to. He saw her name on posters. He passed by her billboard while driving to work. Her story was everywhere, not written in words but painted in truth. And no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't cover it. He couldn't silence it. The same lies he once told in private were now being shattered in public. The image of Lumi holding her child, strong and glowing, was a reminder to everyone of what he threw away. And Lumi, she didn't say a single word about him. She didn't need to. Her silence, her success, and her strength were louder than anything he could ever say. It was late at night, and the rain tapped softly on the windows. Lumi was in bed when she felt the first strong pain. It was time. Her baby was coming. She grabbed her small hospital bag and calmly made her way to the clinic she had visited for months. No one was with her. No one held her hand. But she wasn't scared. She had come this far on her own, and she was ready. The pain grew stronger as she lay on the hospital bed. The nurses were kind and encouraging, holding her hand and telling her she was doing great. Sweat covered her face, and her breathing was heavy, but her heart was steady. With every push, she remembered the journey, the lies, the betrayal, the loneliness, and she turned that pain into strength. After hours of labour, a tiny cry filled the room. The nurse smiled and said, "It's a girl." Lumi's eyes filled with tears as they placed the baby on her chest. She looked down and saw the most beautiful little face. Her daughter had bright eyes and soft curls, just like Lumi had imagined. She named her Dami Lumi Tayo. Dami, because she was a gift. Lumi, to carry her mother's strength. Tayo, not for the man who left, but as a reminder of everything they had overcome. The nurse gently asked, "Should we call someone? The father? A family member?" Lumi looked up, still holding her daughter close. She smiled, not bitter or sad, but full of quiet pride, and replied, "No one. I came in alone. I'll walk out with everything I need." And she meant it. In that moment, she didn't think about who wasn't there. She focused only on the little heartbeat against her chest, the life she had protected, the love she had chosen. Dami wasn't just a baby. She was the proof that Lumi had survived, grown and risen above everything meant to break her. She had no flowers, no visitors, no gifts, but she had her daughter, and that was more than enough. The world had told her she couldn't do it, that she wasn't wanted, that she should give up. But here she was, a mother, a warrior, and a woman who had chosen love over fear. That rainy night, Lumi didn't just give birth to a baby, she gave birth to a new life, a new story, one she would write with courage, paint with truth, and live with pride. The gallery was full of people. Some came for the art, some came for the story, and others came because they had heard whispers. Whispers about a woman who turned heartbreak into beauty. Lumi didn't invite anyone from her past. No family, no old friends, and definitely not Tayo. But news had spread. Her name was on posters, her face in magazines. The woman who had once been ignored was now the center of attention. Tayo heard about it, of course. At first, he didn't believe it. Then he saw the billboard in town. Lumi holding a paintbrush, her baby on her hip. His stomach turned, and that evening, dressed in a black suit, he showed up at the gallery. No invitation, just curiosity, or maybe guilt. The moment he walked in, the room changed. Not loudly, but enough for people to notice. He moved quietly, walking past canvas after canvas, filled with emotion, pain, and power. He saw her style, bold, raw, and full of meaning. Then he stopped in front of one painting. It was a large piece. A woman stood alone, her back facing the viewer, holding a child's hand. The title was written in gold letters below it, "The Girl He Abandoned." Tayo stared at it, frozen. He knew it was about him. He didn't need anyone to explain. Then he saw her. Lumi entered the room, wearing a long, flowing orange dress. She glowed with confidence and peace. In her arms, she held her daughter, now a few months old, dressed in white. The crowd turned toward her, clapping softly. She smiled at them, then slowly walked past her painting and past him. Their eyes met for the first time in a long while. He looked at her like he wanted to speak, but he had no words. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She looked whole. She paused for just a second, looked directly at him, and gently said, "You couldn't carry the child, but she carried me through." That was it. No shouting, no revenge, no drama, just truth. Tayo lowered his eyes. The silence around him felt louder than anything he'd ever heard. He realized then that she didn't need him to hurt. She had already healed, and the child he once rejected was now the reason she had risen. Lumi turned and walked away, her daughter in her arms, her head held high. The crowd followed her, but Tayo stayed behind, standing in front of the painting, not just as a visitor, but as the man the story was about. Lumi's life took a quiet but powerful turn. After the gallery success, she packed her things and moved to Cape Town with her daughter. She didn't make a big announcement. She just left, ready to begin a life that was completely hers. A life with no lies, no old wounds, and no weight from the past. In Cape Town, she found peace in the sound of ocean waves, in the warm sun, and in the laughter of her little girl, Dami, who was growing fast and strong. Instead of chasing fame, Lumi chose purpose. She used the money from her art to open an art therapy center for single mothers. It wasn't fancy, but it was full of heart. Women came in broken, some with babies on their backs, some with pain in their eyes. Lumi didn't judge them. She simply handed them paintbrushes and said, "Tell your story." And they did. The center became a safe place, full of color, courage, and community. Each wall was covered with real stories, painted by women who were once forgotten. Lumi taught them that their pain had value, that their voices mattered, that healing could be messy, but also beautiful. Her work caught attention again, not from gossip blogs this time, but from people who truly cared. A small documentary team heard about her and asked to tell her story. Lumi agreed, only if it would help more women. Cameras followed her quiet life, her time with Dami, her art sessions, her walks by the sea. At the end of the documentary, the interviewer asked the one question everyone wanted to know. "Do you forgive him?" Lumi paused. She looked out the window at her daughter playing in the garden, spinning in circles with a ribbon in her hand. Then she turned back to the camera and smiled softly. "Forgiveness isn't for him," she said. "It's for me. He gave me a goodbye. My daughter gave me a beginning." That sentence touched hearts around the world. People cried. People shared it. Because in that moment, Lumi showed everyone what true strength looks like. Not revenge, not hate, but healing. She had survived the worst, but more than that, she had transformed. From the woman who once sat silently with a broken heart, to the woman who now helped others rebuild theirs. Her story wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about rising, and she did it all holding the hand of the little girl who reminded her every day that love, when chosen, can create something powerful. To every woman who's been told she's not enough, your story isn't over. You are not what they left. You are what you rose into. Share this if you believe healing is the loudest comeback.